This is my Lumberyard demo. I'm going to show you some getting started with Lumberyard. So unfortunately, I'm a programmer, and I'm going to do some level designy stuff. So it's going to be fun for everyone. This is a little bit about me. This is a new slide they added for me. This is game tech. This is all the facets of Amazon. Welcome to Amazon's game tech. So this presentation is getting started with Lumberyard. I am a chronic smoker. This is my passion. I enjoy grilling and smoking meat, particularly the fatty ones like brisket, pulled pork. I was told I was allowed to use this image as long as I have this buy now button. So please, this is a fantastic smoker. Buy now. You can download these slides at the end and make some delicious smoked meat. All right, making bacon. I make my own bacon too. It's exciting. We're just going to dive right into the demo. So I don't have many slides. All right, so this is the Lumberyard editor. The first thing that I want to do is I want to make a ragdoll. And for people who don't know what a ragdoll is, you take an animated skin mesh and you just let physics animate it for you. So instead of playing like a nice fancy jog animation, it's just going to fall onto the floor and crumple into a heap. All right, we're just going to drag this out into the world. I don't know why that's there. All right, so you can see I dragged and dropped that asset into the world. We have a component entity architecture, so it created an entity for us. It added that transform component to where I dragged it to. It added a skin mesh component because that's the component that's been associated with the CDF. And then it placed Jack right there for us. And so the only thing that we're really missing for our ragdoll, let's move it up so we can see. We're going to go ahead and add the ragdoll component. And we're just going to enable it initially. And let's see how we did. Yeah, all right. So I think that's fun. So the next thing that I want to do, because I'm a programmer, this is as good as the art's going to get. I apologize for that. I want to make table tennis, and I'm going to use ragdolls for a ping pong ball. I don't know about you guys, I think that's funny. So all of these assets come with Lumberyard in the starter game. All of these assets are there. I'm just reusing them. Again, I'm not an artist, so I don't have the artistic ability to do any of this. But I can come in, I can make this like into a large paddle. That looks good. And let's widen it up a little. And we'll thin it down. Still want some volume. So now I want physics to interact with this because I'm going to need collision events. So all of our behavior is driven through these components. So before our our ragdoll is going to collide, I'm going to need to add a physics component to this. So I don't want physics to actually drop my mesh. I want to move it around myself, so I'm going to add static physics. And then I need to add a mesh collider, because if we don't take up volume, then physics can't intersect with no volume, so it'll ignore us. So I'm actually going to reuse this bumper almost the way it is. The very next thing that I'm going to do, let's take this guy. Whoa, simmer down. Now let's just make sure that he does in fact collide. All right, off to a great start. This could have gone way worse. All right, so the way that we add behavior and functionality to our entities and our game objects in Lumberyard, my favorite way is script canvas. You can see it in kiosk number 7, I believe. And I will also make a quick little script canvas right here. So I'm going to add script canvas component. There's no asset being referenced right now. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up. This just says we're getting started. We're in preview. We're making a bunch of changes. Hold on to your seatbelt. We're going to add a new script. So I'm interested in those collision events. So here's my physics component on collision. So when I get a collision, I'm going to need to save that into a collision variable. And we'll just give it a reasonable name, but spelled right. All right, so the very next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set that collision. So in script canvas, we control the flow of data with these top white pins, and we control the flow of execution, and then data flow as all the other pins. So we're going to come straight into there. This is just a weird peculiarity with my current build. You're going to have to set it and then get it. So this is our collision information. So this entity ID is the thing that's going to collide with our paddle. That's going to be that ragdoll. And we're going to use this position, we're going to use this normal vector, and we're just going to apply an impulse along that normal. So I'm going to go ahead and create another variable. And I'm going to call this one impulse. And I'm going to default it to something awesome, like 1,000. And this checkbox here, I'm going to check this. This is going to expose it on the component. So down here, once I assign it, in this variable section, it's going to pop up. And then I can make independent changes per instance of this. So we are going to now, oops. We are going to add an impulse. And we are going to do a multiply. So we're going to find our vector 3, our multiply by number. And that's flow is going to come out there. We're not quite ready for him. And come up here. Bippity bop. We're going to drag that normal in here. We're going to drag our impulse thrust right here. We're going to add a get. We'll insert this in the middle. All right, so that's going to generate 1,000 Newton impulse along the normal to whatever entity. So this, right now, by default, is set to target ourselves, but we don't want to apply an impulse to our paddle. That would be weird. Instead, we are going to drag this guy over here. This impulse is going to come down here. And we'll make this a little prettier. Whoops, missed. And we'll drag that here. All right, let's go ahead and save that. Apparently I've done this before. All right, so we're going to call this bumper number 3. And for now, we'll just go ahead and close script canvas. We'll highlight one of these. We're going to target that asset as promised. Here's our variable. Here's our impulse of 1,000. And with Lumberyard, we can rapidly enter and exit game mode. So that's one of the features of rapid iteration that we're going to leverage. So we're going to go in, and there you see, I don't know, I find that very entertaining. All right, so from here, it's not really a game until we can move the bumper around, but I want to reuse this piece. So I'm going to turn this into a slice, and a slice is the prefab system that Lumberyard uses. So I am going to click on this crate. I want to rename it though, because crate isn't really what it is anymore. It is now a paddle. And we don't want him called Jack. We're going to call him Ragdoll. Let's go ahead and let's make them both a slice so we can reuse all of them. So I'm going to create this Ragdoll slice. I don't know why it wants to save in there. That's scary. All right, so there's our ragdoll slice. We're going to have this paddle. We're going to create a slice there as well. All right, now we're able to reuse these as many times as we want. So the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to create a little entity. And this is going to be a fulcrum so that we can pivot up and down. So I will call this a tilt pivot. All right. And we are actually going to, let's see, where's my tilt pivot? Ah, perfect. It is in almost the right spot. We're gonna go ahead and drag it up. We're gonna drag it over. And this is gonna be that fulcrum that this paddle is gonna tilt from. So we're gonna try to line it up as best we can. Again, I'm a programmer, so this is not gonna look awesome. All right, there we go. Can't believe I did it first try. Now we're going to parent the pivot, or we're gonna parent the paddle to the pivot. Say that 20 times real fast. This is going to allow us to move the pivot, and we're actually gonna make another pivot to control our horizontal movement as well. So on this pivot, let's go ahead and we're gonna start handling input. So here I've already pre-generated my paddle input bindings. I'm just gonna assign that. We're gonna open the editor and I'll give you a quick preview of what that looks like. All right, so this is our input binding file. I've got 3 high-level input events. I've got tilt up, down, move left, right, and this one I'm not going to use in this demo, but it is fun. So the first one I'm going to use is this tilt up, down, and we can see what inputs actually generate these events. So right here you can see that S is going to generate the event in one direction, and I believe W is just set to be the negative of S, but they both generate that same tilt message. So I'm going to copy paste this just so I don't forget how to spell. Go ahead and close that. Now I'm going to add another script canvas. We're going to leap back into the editor. We are going to create a new script again. So this time we are looking for input. So we are going to create an input handler. And we're going to listen for that tilt up down message. And whenever we get that, let's go ahead and create a variable. And we'll call this our tilt speed. And let's say we want to go 60 degrees per second. We'll expose that on the components so we can change it without having to open up script canvas again. Let's go ahead and add so by default, these are going to come in degrees. So we're going to want to change our degrees to radians. We're going to need a multiply node. Multiply. All right, we're just going to get that tilt speed. We are going to multiply this. Every time we receive a held event, so as long as W and S is being held down, we're going to go ahead and we're going to multiply in our speed. Then we are going to convert that from degrees to radians, because that is what the code likes. And then all we have to do is begin rotating. So we're going to rotate about our local x-axis, which is, imagine our right arm. So we're just going to be tilting like this. And we're going to tilt around that pivot. So because the wedge has been parented to that pivot, as the pivot rotates, it's going to rotate our paddle. So we're going to rotate around the local x. And by default, it's us, which is perfect. All right, let's save this and see if it works. All right. We're going to close that. Let's assign it. There's the tiltorama. And let's enter game mode. Whoa, that's way too fast. Someone's a madman. Okay, so I made this. So it's wonderful being able to enter and exit game mode. You make mistakes. You can iterate as quickly as you can. So what I did is I forgot to bring in the frames delta time. I said that this is per second, but this is actually happening 60 degrees per frame. Clearly not good. So we're going to open up this script canvas again. We don't need to see that again. So we're going to need one more multiply. Let's just copy that. and we are going to add a get tick delta time. That is the time between all of these ticks. And we are going to put this right in here. Here's our multiply. And we don't want that anymore. All right, we're just going to hook up that delta time. We're going to multiply that in. All right, let's see if we did any better. All right, we're going to close this again. Oh, smooth like butter. That's perfect. Okay, now we also want to be able to aim it left and right. So like I promised, we are going to create an entity. We can actually see if we can duplicate this one. We're going to delete the paddle off of it. Oops, not the name, the paddle. Okay. Oh no, what'd I do? All right. Let's try it again. All right, whatever. We will create a brand new entity. We're going to call this one the move pivot. All right, so now we need to make sure that that is placed in exactly the same spot or close enough. Sometimes people will get a little sick. All right, now we are going to move the pivot here. And if we want, we can nest these slices. I can create a slice out of this. That's the full paddle. So we are going to go to our move pivot. We are going to add a script canvas component. We are going to create a new one. But since it's so much similar to that first one that we made, I think I'll just open the Tiltorama. We'll start from there. We're going to change this. I forgot what I called my input. Let's look on here real quick. Look at our cheat sheet. And instead of tilt up, down, we've got move left, right. We'll just copy that, kill that. We're going to switch what event we're listening for. And at the end, rather than rotating around X, we're going to rotate around our local Z. Delete that. And we're just going to save as on this one. And we'll call this the mover. All right, so let's go back to the move pivot. We'll select our asset. We're looking for the mover. All right. Now we're going to enter game mode again. We're going to make sure that that works. I missed. All right, so one ragdoll was fun, but not enough fun. So let's have a constant stream of them. So when I made this a slice, a special kind of slice. Let's see where I actually save this. Start game objects. So one of the nice thing about these slices is that you can make them dynamic. So I can right click on this and I can set dynamic. And what that means is that now I can spawn this at runtime. So now I'm going to create an entity. I am going to move it. Zoom in here. We're going to raise this up. Slide it over. Raise it up a little bit more. How is that? It's still a little too far in the back. Let's move it right there. That looks good. Okay. Now we want this to be our spawner. Let's go ahead and rename it. And let's add a spawner component. So you can see we've got a random time spawner and a spawner. First, we're going to add that spawner. We're going to target our dynamic slice. We are going to target. We saved it in objects, so we'll look for it there. There it is. If we want to spawn on activate, we can go ahead and get rid of this because we're just going to spawn them dynamically now. There you can see we've dynamically spawned one. That other component that you saw, we're going to add that now. So we're going to add that random time spawner. So one of the nice features about Lumberyard is if there's a component that has a requirement on another component, it will gladly tell you what that is, and it will help you fulfill its needs. So this one's saying that it is missing a required component, and right now it's been disabled. So it needs some volume that it's going to randomly spawn this into. So it's going to randomly spawn anywhere in this box, but that's actually more variability than I want. So we're going to make that box super tiny. And up here in the timing, right now it's on a spawn delay of 5 seconds. I think, whoa, not -8. Let's try 2. There you can put some variation in there. I'm not going to play with that just yet. Now we can see, oh, we still had our original spawner spawning initially, which is why we got that double spawn. So now we're getting a little closer to a game. This is getting exciting. So let's go ahead and tell our spawn on activate. No, don't spawn on activate. We're going to let this random time spawner do everything for us. We like where it's at. We want it to be part of our paddle. So let's just go ahead and drag it into the hierarchy. All right, let's go ahead and we can push this to our slice. Let's add that spawner. Okay, so now I think we are just about ready to start making our table. So I'm going to come through. I'm actually going to reuse this paddle. Only I want to rotate it 90 degrees. 90 degrees. And it is not big enough. Let's make a large table. Let's make this, we'll try 10 times bigger. How's that look? Yeah, it looks good. And let's make this 10 times bigger. We don't need to make it 10 times thicker, so I won't do that. We're going to take our original paddle guy over here, and we're just going to put him on one end. Now, one of the cool things about slices is that I'm also getting all of that scripting behavior that I put into it. I'm getting all of that along with me for free. So let's just go ahead and see if this is working the way we think it is. Maybe a little too much. I might have to make this bigger. All right, we got one bounce. Okay, so I can go into this one particular paddle. And remember when we saved out that impulse? So by default, it was 1,000. This particular instance, I can change this to a measly 500. Now this table itself still has that 1,000 impulse. This is highlighting in orange because it's telling me that I've made a local override. I could push this to all slices, but for now, I'm just going to leave it this way. So there we go. That feels more like table tennis. All right. So it wouldn't be fun without an opponent. So let's take this guy. It's gonna, there's a gem that you can enable that will enable local multiplayer, but I don't have that gem enabled. So we're just gonna duplicate this guy, and we're going to put it all the way at the other end. And let's go ahead and we'll rename him for fun to, we'll call him opponent. He's not really going to be a player. He's going to respond to the same input that I respond to, but we'll call him opponent, or she. And we are going to, oops. We are going to rotate our opponent to face us 180 degrees. And now I think that this is normal table tennis, but I think we should maybe play with this a little bit more. So let's go ahead and duplicate this as well. That's basically a box. I'm a programmer. This is what you're going to get. All right, we'll duplicate this. This time we're going to rotate this one. Let's just make a wall encapsulating it. 90 degrees. Too much, not enough. Just, well, good enough. And let's just sandwich these in together. All right, looks like I was way off. And we'll duplicate this again. Looks like it might be fun. Let's try that. All right, so the next thing that we can do, we can come down here. We use a gem system, which is how we expand the functionality of our engine. One of those gems holds our camera and all the camera logic. One of them is, in particular, allows us to create a camera entity from the current view. I have now created a camera. You can see it down here, camera 1. I can select this camera. There's another cool feature is you can be this camera. So here's my little player paddle. I can set up whatever scene I want, however I want that to look. Then I can exit back out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that camera and I'm going to spawn it to our player. Or, sorry, I'm going to attach it to our player. So now it's going to follow us as we move, but not when we pivot, because that would make people sick. All right, now it seems a little too tame. I want to kick that back up to 1,000. That was fun. All right, we're gonna go back here. I'll meet it in the middle. We'll just do 900. It's got to feel somewhat different. And you can see my opponent is over there. He's also spawning. Little ping pong people paddle. So I probably have a little bit of a twisted sense of humor, but I find this to be highly entertaining. Anyway, this was my demo for getting started with Lumberyard. I hope that you all had as much fun as I did. I was a little nervous. Hopefully you weren't. We made some rag dolls, which are just physics-driven animated bodies. So thank you for your time.